Hello and welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft.
And I'm Dave Scott. Thank you very much for joining us today. All across Oakland County, I'm in our Troy studios. Tyler is in our West Bloomfield studios. And we thank you for tuning in wherever you happen to be, Tyler. That could be right here in 89.3 WBLD. And let's see, what was that other radio station in Bloomfield Hills? Seem to forget that one.
No clue. It's always on the tip of my tongue, Dave.
Yeah. 88.1 WBFH,
Yes.
the Biff. 88.1, the Biff. Thank you for tuning in to our great stations, watching us on Birmingham Area Municipal Television and Civic Center TV. If you're a Comcast subscriber, you can catch both of those signals very easily on Channel 15 Comcast. Channel 99 AT&T is where you can watch us. And all you got to do is go to one of our communities and click on the community on Channel 99. And there we will be live on AT&T television. Easiest way, though, is just to go to the website, civiccentertv.com. You'll see the video playing and you can watch us there. And I also forget to mention every day in West Bloomfield Township, you can go to their website and our live stream is there as well. Tyler, do we have a Facebook partner today?
Why, yes, we do, Dave. Our Facebook partner today is the Greater West Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce.
All right, so the Greater West Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce Facebook Live as well. So thank you very much for tuning in. Very busy day today in the program. We're going to talk to Curt Lawson, the Public Information Officer and Deputy Police Chief of the West Bloomfield Police Department. He is standing by. We saw Curt in the field at a protest on Friday that we covered live. We'll get an update on how things are going with that department and get an idea really regionally from Curt as to what is the current state of affairs. As you know, if you listened yesterday, we got off on a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's something that's worth taking time. Folks are having trouble collecting their unemployment here in the state of Michigan. It's because of fraud statewide. It's because of the complexity of getting all of the paperwork turned in and then processed at the state of Michigan. Now, there also is an uptick in fraud all across our areas. In fact, Curt Lawson will tell us if he has any information on that right here in West Bloomfield when we talk to him. But that being said, the onus in all of this is being put back on people who are unemployed in the state, and that's a real problem. We're going to talk to our good friend Lauren Keniston in a little bit. She is the girlfriend of the producer of the show, Captain Jeff. So we've known about her plight. She's done everything humanly possible that any good citizen could do, short of storming the state capitol to get her unemployment check. And she's been, out of work since early March. So we're going to check in with her. We'll bring up to date on how that whole process is going. Eric Glick of the Glick Law Firm is going to check in, and we're going to talk about unemployment issues and then other issues as they relate to you during this COVID-19 crisis. And then later on in the show, Rachael Kohl checks in, the director of Workers' Rights Clinic at the University of Michigan Law School, talking specifically about this unemployment issue. We have a lot of other news breaking over the past several days. We'll get to that, including protest activity downtown, defunding the police, and much, much more. A lot of conversations on all those fronts, and we'll do our very best to bring you a local perspective here on the show. Tyler, do you have those two pictures available? And then we'll get to Curt.
I do have those two pictures available. I got to take you off our screen and talk for a few seconds while I say that, but I do have both the COVID monster, which I'll show you now. Here is the COVID monster from, of course, the grill in Sylvan Lake. They have those on those tables that aren't available to say, hey, don't sit here. We got to keep our social distance. But that's not the only one. There's also another method we saw yesterday. Our Erica Jones uncovered at a Coney Island in the local area, and that is the COVID curtain, which you see on our screens now. They put that up. It's not for extra privacy or to give you separation between yourself and the wait staff or passersby. That also, Erica said, is about keeping people from sitting at those seats to maintain social distance as well.
I see.
So that's now off your screen.
Well, let's go to our next guest, and Curt Lawson. I really wish you could have seen those images through Zoom, because the COVID monster sits on a table. We saw it when we were at the grill in Sylvan Lake the other day, and it is to keep people from sitting at that table. And then Eric, as Tyler said, it was out yesterday at a Coney Island at Telegraph and Maple, and they actually had the plexiglass on either side of the booth, which we're seeing a lot of people do. But then to isolate the booth and let people know they couldn't sit there, they had a shower curtain covering the entire front of the booth. So the shower curtain bar and the clear, translucent shower curtain, craziest thing I've ever seen. But people are getting really creative and doing everything they can, Curt Lawson, to be able to follow the rules. He is the public information officer and the deputy police chief of the West Bloomfield Police Department. Curt, good morning and welcome to the Megacast.
Well, good morning to you. And it's nice to see that we can finally get out and enjoy some restaurants. And it's nice to see that the restaurant owners and the staff are taking things seriously and they're being creative to keep all of us safe.
Yeah, I think both of those deployments are really amazing, very creative, worked out really well, a little bit of creativity and a little bit of fun. Curt, do you have any information, Curt Lawson, West Bloomfield Police Department, do you have any information as to how things went the last couple of days with our establishments and restaurants and retail opening up across the Oakland County area?
So what I've seen right here in West Bloomfield is that it's been kind of a soft opening, a slow opening. Many restaurants have chosen not to open right away. I was actually trying to find a place to eat yesterday. I had a meeting and I wanted to do a lunch, and I had a difficult time finding a restaurant within West Bloomfield where you could physically go and seat yourself. Because I think that there's a lot of procedures and things that the governor has pushed out through our executive orders that have to be in place before they open. So that and the capacity limits, I think everyone's kind of taking it slow, seeing how other establishments that have opened, how they do before they bring all their wait staff back and start having to, pay people if they're not getting the individuals, the residents into their restaurants. So they're kind of a wait and see attitude at this point, I believe.
All right, another really big opening right in your front and right here in West Bloomfield is the West Bloomfield Township Hall is officially opening today. It's been open by appointment the past couple of days. Today is the first official day. The doors are open. People can go in, and we're going to send Erica Jones over there shortly to get an update on how things are going. But it's a big day, and it's symbolic, Curt, of the fact that everyone in West Bloomfield, Oakland County, across the state, and a lot of people across the country have done a really good job helping get all this under control.
Right. And it starts with, the staff already having those procedures in place to keep everyone safe. And I know that the township employees that have been already in place for the last several weeks, they're anxious to, again, engage the public, work face-to-face with people. But like we talked about, those safety precautions are in place. We have the plexiglass. Everyone that comes in at town hall today will have the facial coverings. That's going to be a requirement. Certainly the staff is getting their temperature taken at least twice a day. So our number one priority here in West Bloomfield is trying to keep everyone safe so we don't have, in the fall, have another spike in COVID-19.
Curt Lawson is with us, Public Information Officer, Deputy Police Chief, West Bloomfield, joining us today here on the Megacast. Dave Scott in our Troy offices and studios, Tyler Keefe in our West Bloomfield studios of Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. We're going to check in a couple of minutes, Curt, with Lauren, who we were talking about at the beginning of the show, has not received her unemployment check since early March. And the state is saying there's some fraud here in the state, and it's taken 300,000+ additional people's unemployment checks, and they're holding them back as they try to explore what's going on in fraud. We had just a little quick conversation a minute ago before we went on the air. Were you able to find out anything about maybe fraud cases on unemployment going on in West Bloomfield?
Actually, I was, and I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. So, we have fraud here in West Bloomfield. We've always had it. We're very fortunate that our detective bureau is large enough and they have the technology that many times they can follow up on these frauds and they can come up with suspects and we can bring people in and have them prosecuted for defrauding our residents and people that visit our community. As far as fraud currently with unemployment checks, we've actually seen quite an uptick in the last 2 weeks. We've had 20 of those, and they just keep rolling in. So we'll be following up with that, but certainly it's something on our radar at this point.
I hate it. I mean, it's the people that are doing that, low life to the greatest degree, because they're preventing people like Lauren from getting their unemployment checks. They're just taking a terrible situation and for their own advantage, making it worse for everybody. Curt, put them in jail and just forget about them.
Well, we will certainly do our part.
I'm sure you're going to give them their due process, but it's very frustrating. That said, people like Lauren should still be able to get their checks, and we're going to talk to her in a couple of minutes. Before we say so long, obviously a huge day in West Bloomfield on Friday. Protests not only in our community, but all across Oakland County and across the state of Michigan. And Curt, the protest Friday was incredibly peaceful. I thought everyone handled themselves well. Speeches from a number of people, including Chief Patton, as everyone united in a big circle at the West Bloomfield campus property at the end of the walk. The walk was great. A ton of young people out, and I thought things went very, very well, and a lot of folks that hadn't had the opportunity to understand the impact of this issue, I think, got a chance to experience that. Your thoughts?
Well, I totally agree with you. The event went very well. It was a great rally. They had more people show up than they really expected. I think realistically they thought there'd be 150 to 250. We had close to, I think, 600 individuals there. And, you know, as you and I walked through the crowd and we talked to people and we were able to engage in conversation, you know, you had the Chaldean community, the Jewish community, the African-American community, you had our residents, you had the business owners, everyone coming together for the same cause. And it really went smoothly and it was a great success. And I really, in my career, I've been here 25 years, and I will never forget some of the conversations that I had with individuals during that rally as we walked from Maple and Orchard to the police department, listening to individuals and their concerns in regards to the African American community, their history, their problems that they've encountered with law enforcement. It was a great conversation, and I was glad I was able to walk with them and to be able to listen to them.
It's begun a dialogue, Curt, and thank you for your thoughts. It's begun and created dialogue on how we can look at policing in a new way in our country. And the headlines, as you well know, are "Let's defund police departments." As that conversation becomes less emotional and more rational and hands-on, discussions have been taking place about being able to respond to the challenges in the community with folks other than police officers. And to some degree, that makes an awful lot of sense. The police officers, frontline police officers, respond to so many things that have nothing to do with a conventional crime. Is that frustrating for you? And do you feel that somehow, as we take a look at policing in our country, that there might be some change in the mix of how first responders are helping people when they call 911?
Well, that's a great question. I could talk about that for about a half an hour, but what we need to do is we need to align the police priorities with the community priorities. We have to fully understand what the community expectations are of us. And currently, the reality of the situation is that our law enforcement officers are asked to deal with people with mental illness, people with special needs, the whole gambit of they really need to have a lot of expertise in many different areas. And my concern nationwide is that we have not recruited and brought on the best people that we need to in law enforcement in a nationwide scope. I think here in West Bloomfield, we have a great blueprint of what we bring in, these very educated officers that represent our community. We are training them in implicit bias, de-escalation techniques, special needs training, mental health training. And we want them to go out there and not just write tickets and make arrests, because what is that exactly solving? We want to go out and solve problems. And that's the way we look at it here in West Bloomfield. And I think that is what we need to do nationwide, is the law enforcement has to be set up, restructured so they solve community problems. And maybe that means that you're bringing on psychologists, social workers to help you do that. but you definitely have to partner with others in your community to solve problems. And I just want to make one more comment. Totally on board with police reform. I think it's needed, but really, we as leaders need to figure out, how we're going to make that positive change. And we need to kind of ask, not how long will reform take, but how far we can take reform. So not only do we have to bring on the best officers, but we have to make sure we have the right leaders in place to make these changes.
Well, it's great that the dialogue is going on. Much needed, terrible path to get there. And again, a really inspirational day in West Bloomfield on Friday. And then, as you may know, I often head north for the weekend, and I did that last weekend. And here I am in very rural Charlevoix, Michigan, with a very low minority population. And there are 300 people lining the streets of Charlevoix on Saturday, too. And I pick up the phone and talk to friends all over the state. And the scope of this protest nationwide, from not just our large urban centers, not even just suburban areas like West Bloomfield, but literally all over our state and all over our country. Absolutely amazing. I salute all of the peaceful protesters. I also salute the police department and thank you, Curt, for everything you and everyone else is doing in West Bloomfield. And I thank you for joining us today. Good to be with you, and we'll keep the dialogue going.
Great to be here. Have a great day, Dave.
Curt Lawson, the Public Information Officer, Deputy Police Chief of the West Bloomfield Police Department. Again, quick reminder, in West Bloomfield, and it will likely be happening in our other communities, town halls are beginning to open up. West Bloomfield Town Hall opens up for business today. We're going to check in with our own Erica Jones in a little bit here and see how things are going. But Tyler, can I go right to Lauren, or do we need a break?
I think it's good for us to take a break, get everything tested out and ready to go. So let's do that,
Okay.
Dave. I'll take your microphone off, and we'll take a short break. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes with more on the Oakland County Megacast on our family of stations. Alongside Dave Scott, I'm Tyler Kieft, and we will return after this.
Coronavirus has put us to the test. Now it's time to put it to the test. We've greatly expanded testing in Michigan. So people who think they may have COVID-19 with symptoms like fever, cough, and shortness of breath can get tested. And those without symptoms who work in public can now get tested, as they could carry the virus. Start by calling your healthcare provider or contacting a testing site near you. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonae Khaldun. I'm the Chief Medical Executive for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The people who are at highest risk of getting severely ill from COVID-19 are the elderly and those with chronic medical conditions. That includes people with heart disease, diabetes, COPD, or those who have compromised immune systems. People who are in those categories should right now be staying at home as much as possible and not going out if it is not essential. If you fit into one of those categories, those are the things you should do. And if you have a family member who fits into one of those categories, you should be checking in on them and making sure they are following those guidelines. There's something everyone can do to protect the community from COVID-19.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft.
And update, Scott Tyler Kieft is in our Lakes FM studios in West Bloomfield, and I am in our new studios here in Troy, Michigan, our Motown Digital Studios. Very good to have you joining us wherever you happen to be today, all across Oakland County. Thank you for joining us on 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 WBFH The Biff, and watching us on Birmingham Area Television, Civic Center TV, and other points all over the internet, including CivicCenterTV.com. So very good. Tyler, Curt Lawson, take some time. And, I just want to say one more time, the great job the West Bloomfield Police Department did during the protest on Friday. Now, that group was there, Tyler, for a peaceful event. They weren't there to cause trouble. That being said,
Right.
West Bloomfield Police Department really did a great job.
I think they did too. I think everybody involved with that protest showed what good can come of this movement in between conversing with one another. There are sides in this. You know, the police have their angle and the protesters have their angle, but there's common ground too. And I think that both the protest organizers, the people that were there to protest and show their solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement, and the police department in West Bloomfield all did an excellent job of having those tough conversations, coming together, joining hands, and saying, let's solve this problem together.
Yeah, and now we're working on action, and that'll be the next conversation we have over the next days, weeks, months, and years, and we'll continue to have that dialogue. We ran into a problem that we are going to hold on to, and we're not going to let go until we figure out a solution, not only for one Lauren Keniston, but for everyone who is unemployed right now and is not getting their unemployment checks. And we understand that's a lot of people. Lauren, welcome back to the Megacast. Good to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Dave. And thank you so much, too, for bringing attention to this issue. It feels really, really great to have somebody helping me.
Well, and you're helping too, because through this conversation with you and you taking time to be on the show, we can talk about a problem, and it's much more real when we can look at somebody who is going to the mailbox every day thinking, hey, maybe, are you doing that? Are you going to the mailbox saying, hey, maybe today's the day I'm going to get a letter from the state of Michigan, or maybe I'm going to get my first unemployment check?
Every day, I think, is going to be the day, and it has yet to happen.
All right, just to recap for people that are tuning in, Lauren, when did you first get your notice that you were being furloughed or laid off from work?
I was laid off, I believe, on March 14th, and then I applied for unemployment on March 17th.
Okay, so March 14th, you're laid off. You file on the 17th, and just as a recap for our audience, what has happened since then? Now, we know that the punchline, you haven't seen a penny from anybody, but what's been going on?
So pretty much for the first month, I just waited. I got an email saying that, everything had gone through. I would be hearing from unemployment offices shortly. I gave them time, knowing that there was, a really, really high volume of cases. But then finally, about a month after I had applied, I tried to log into my account, and it told me that my Social Security number was attached to another account, which made no sense to me. I had never filed for unemployment before, and I immediately started calling people, emailing people, anything I could think of to do. And never once out of the hundreds and hundreds of times did I call was I actually able to talk to a human. I never got a response through any of the emails that I sent. And finally, I would say a couple weeks ago, I finally got a call from someone. They were unable to fix any of my problems. They didn't know what it was stemming from. And they said someone would call me back within the next couple days. And again, it was a couple weeks ago, and I haven't heard anything.
You've not heard a thing. So what has happened to me in the past when I've had issues with the state over taxes or anything, if I can't get anywhere through the bureaucracy of state government, I call our lawmakers. And doing what we do here, we've got some friends. So we started making calls after you were on the other day, and you're not in the district where we have our best friends, but we are making some efforts. But in talking to various lawmakers off the record, they said that it is even difficult for them to get straight answers right now. In a normal situation, they said, well, we could check in an individual case if something got messed up, and usually within 3 or 4 days, we would have some indication of what's going on. But now this is your state representative, your state senator. Now even they are having difficulties getting answers. So we're working on that. We've tried to book some people. We're trying to book your state senator because you live in the Royal Oak area. So we're trying to book your state senator and your state representative and get them on the show. And then we're going to ask them directly right on the air about your matter, and we'll see what happens. So we're working on it. Yeah. And then you just, but on the other side of this, we have another issue in that hundreds of thousands of people now in the state of Michigan who even were getting their unemployment checks are not getting them now because of a fraud problem. Now, it was confirmed by Curt Lawson a couple of minutes ago that there are fraud cases. We know they're going on, but for the state just to say, okay, all you people who should be legally getting unemployment checks, we're going to cut 300,000 of you off because we have a fraud problem that we can't figure out how to solve right now. I know your answer to this, Lauren, but does that seem fair?
No, it definitely does not. No.
All right. So I'm going to ask our producer, Larry. This is the only show that I know that actually has a Zoom producer to temporarily mute your microphone. And lo and behold, look who we have here right now. Eric Glick of the Glick Law Firm is here. And we're going to see if we can get Eric's microphone opened up and say hello to Eric. Maybe he can weigh in on this issue a little bit. Eric, hello and welcome to the Megacast.
Hi, Dave. Good to be here.
Have you been listening to Lauren's dilemma?
I have, and unfortunately, it's not a unique story. If you Google something as simple as Michigan Unemployment Insurance Agency, which I did last night, there's literally dozens and dozens and dozens of pages of the article and various articles. About 340,000 people are not getting their benefits. It's been placed on hold because of other people committing fraud and the government trying to deal with that. It's really unfortunate, and I'm sure under the circumstances, the Unemployment Insurance Agency is overwhelmed, but that's little comfort to the people who have been told they can't go to work, they can't leave their house, and the government's going to help them out through unemployment benefits.
So, Eric, it's even worse than that because I think this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Eric Glick with us of the Glick Law Firm. Counselor, it's even worse because that development happened, the upswing in fraud has been happening, over the past 3-4 weeks, and it's been more of an issue. Lauren filed in March and hasn't heard word one. So, I mean, listen, I'm coming to you, not and it's not your fault. You're an attorney. You help people like this. Do you have any idea, any thoughts? I mean, we're working through, which you heard, we're trying to get a hold of some lawmakers to see if they'll advocate on our behalf, but even they're having trouble. So, any idea, Counselor, any strategy or thoughts for anybody else that might be in this situation or what we can tell Lauren?
Unfortunately, all the strategies are out there. I mean, people are calling. It's a full-time job for people. They're spending 6-8 hours a day trying to get through to someone. They're finally getting through, or they're sending an email and they're getting a message saying, "We'll call you right back." There's no easy solution to it. I see that a lot of the state representatives are calling for the termination of the head of the Unemployment Insurance Agency. Again, that's little comfort to people. This is, uncharted territory with the global. But you're right, we're 2 months into it at this point, and things need to be figured out.
Right, and it's even worse. I mean, just imagine Lauren here. She's we're fortunate she's got income coming into their house right now, but a lot of people don't have a penny coming into their house. And so what are you supposed to do? You don't have any money. You don't even have any cash to call a lawyer or somebody to help you out.
Well, that's exactly right. This has been going on. There have been issues with the Unemployment Insurance Agency for as long as I can remember. I help people a little bit over the years, but the issue is people who are receiving unemployment insurance benefits typically don't have the money to pay for an attorney to go through the appeals process. You probably remember back in 2013, 14, 15, the Unemployment Insurance Agency started using a new computer and a new computer algorithm, and they were assessing people. Back then, it's changed, but back then, if you received less than $500, and it was based on misrepresentation. Any misrepresentation, when you call in, if you misrepresent, you're looking for a job, or you're working for a job, anything by accident, you not only have to repay the money you were paid, but 2 times that amount. And if it's over $500, it's the amount you were paid plus 4 times that amount. So if you receive, say, $5,000 and they determine there's fraud or misrepresentation, you've got to pay back $25,000. And I can tell you they were across the board concluding there was fraud or misrepresentation. They would issue a determination, you request a redetermination, they'd give you the same result. We'd have to go to file an appeal with the administrative law judge. And sometimes we were successful with the administrative law judge, but I can tell you that people at the Unemployment Insurance Agency would not change their mind. It was up to the judge. They would say, we determine this is fraud. So now, as of 2018, at least that's changed. Now, if there is fraud, if there is identity theft, which you've been talking about, none of us want that. We don't want people taking away money from people that need it. We don't want people taking our tax dollars when they're not entitled to it. So there's still this 4-time penalty when there's fraud. But at least now, if there's a mistake, if it's a first offense, you just repay back the money that you were overpaid. If it's a second offense, you pay back 1.5 times the money you were overpaid. Because before, you talk about ruining people's lives, if you've got to pay back $25,000 when you were paid $5,000, and the UIA, they don't have the same due process as any other creditors. They can garnish your wages, they can garnish your tax refunds, they can garnish your unemployment benefits, they can not give you unemployment benefits. So boy, people were, there's been some lawsuits that I'm sure you're aware of, and people are getting money back.
Hey,
but still.
You just gave me a really good idea, Eric Glick. I'm sure no one's ever done this, and I'm sure illegal. I'm not a lawyer. What if we garnished the state of Michigan and we tried to obviously you can't do this, but there's got to be, we don't want to sue the state of Michigan on Lauren's behalf, but what could somebody do? Is there any legal process or, and I realize this is not the biggest radio show and television show in the world, and we have other responsibilities on our beat here, but it just seems to me that this is a really good thing to work on. We have 20 fraud cases in West Bloomfield. We have people like Lauren, hundreds of thousands of them around the state. There's got to be tens of thousands of them in our listening area that are, we just don't know about. Got to be something we can do. So what do you think?
Well, there's a couple things. Number one is the government has immunity from these types of things. The government is immune. The theory is we don't. Of course, right. Second idea is, there are procedures if you're denied benefits, but the problem is Lauren hasn't been denied benefits. 340,000 people haven't been denied benefits. They're just being told they need to provide more information or it's in the works. And so unfortunately, there's no recourse other than what you're suggesting is continue to try to get through to people at the UIA or talk to the legislatures or talk to the representatives.
All right. Well, we'll work on it. In Lauren's case, again, I think there's two groups of people here, Eric. I think there are people that I would assume if the state is withholding your benefits to protect themselves from fraud, they would have sent a letter out to all those people and let them know. We'll check with Lauren again in a minute. I don't think she got that letter. Lauren, did you get a letter? Just give us a thumbs up or down. I could see. Did you get a letter? No, she's giving me a thumbs down. No letter from the state. So she's really been denied her benefits, don't you think, Eric?
Well, of course. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So.
But there's no appeals process for not being officially denied.
Right. This is exactly why we have to do something. She's
right.
Called her lawmaker, and they're trying, but even they admit they can't do anything. She's tried for 2 months to get somebody on the phone, Ixvay, Nixvay, no answer, Bay. So there's just, we got to do something. That's why we're talking about it in the media. So we're going to work on some strategies. Anything legal? Could we threaten a lawsuit to the state of Michigan or I'm not suggesting you get engaged in such nefarious activities. I could, but is that a potential thing, or what would you recommend?
I'd recommend there's things we can do. Sure, we can write letters to the representatives. We can contact the State Bar Association and try and put something together. But really, from the grassroots level, it's really try to continue going through the process, as obnoxious as it may be, to keep making phone calls and to keep sending emails, but keep doing that. And, again, getting through to the representatives, having the representatives on your show and having them in people's corners to put pressure on the Unemployment Insurance Agency or the governor to actually get moving and get these things figured out. That's the way to go.
All right.
The better.
Eric, thank you so much for your advice, and thanks for bringing me back down from the mountain. But we're gonna work on this. I'm not giving up. There's a media side to this thing too. The Unemployment Insurance Agency cannot ignore 500,000 people when they're properly motivated to just leave it out there and not resolve this issue for so many people.
Well, they've been trying to, but we don't want that to happen.
All right.
get in gear and start doing what they need to do. What they're supposed
Eric, anything else that you want to mention? You've been kind enough to come on the show. This is what we want to talk to you about. Anything else that you want to share with us today?
That's it, Dave.
All right, very good.
Enjoy the rest of the day. It's a beautiful.
All right. It is a great day. Thank you very much. Eric Glick of the Glick Law Firm. We're going to go back to Lauren here for just a moment, then we'll go to break. So, Lauren, and it's not Eric's fault. He's just kind of throwing his arms up in the air and said, write letters. And there's, that you can't sue the government. So Lauren, I want to check. You've got nothing from the UIA saying they're denying your unemployment claim. They're just not responding to you, right?
Exactly. Nothing. I mean, I would even be happy to find out that I had been denied, because at least it would be something. It would be some sort of an answer. So I've had literally no communication.
All right. Well, we're going to try to get your lawmakers on the air over the next couple of days. We'll work that for a few days. And then if that doesn't work, I think we're going to have to go do the show in Lansing. Maybe we'll do the radio show in Lansing in front of the Unemployment Insurance Agency's office. We'll go pull a Michael Moore on them. We'll go up there and we'll knock on the door like Michael did back at GM, whether you love Michael Moore or not. And darn it all, we're going to get someone at least to talk to us to get an answer for you and the hundreds of thousands of other people around the state, many of them right here, who aren't getting their unemployment checks. So, are you on board with us? Would you be willing to go?
On board.
All right. Yes. All right. Thank you. Tyler, am I getting us in trouble here?
No, I think it's very reasonable to be disappointed, to be even angry in this situation for these 340,000 people who have had their accounts frozen, for the 500,000 people overall who are in limbo right now trying to get their unemployment benefits, but they're not denied, so they can't do any sort of appeal. They haven't gotten an answer about is their account specifically under some sort of a fraud investigation. And on top of that, according to an article a couple of days ago that we talked about on the air from Bridge, Michigan, the unemployment agency has 600 staffers reviewing these fraud cases. 340,000 cases, potentially, as have been reported by Bridge, Michigan. And the unemployment agency has 600 people on it. This is going to continue to move really slow.
Yeah, but I mean, could one of those 600 people call Lauren back, for goodness sakes, and talk to her? It's been 2 months, so whatever. We're going to find out about it. Listen, we're going to take a break. Tyler, David Dulio is standing by, another perfect guest. Whoever is the producer of the show is a genius. So David Dulio is standing by. That's Lauren's boyfriend. That's why I said that. He is a professor of political science at Oakland University and the director of Oakland University's Center for Civil Engagement. What a perfect day to talk to him. We're going to check in with him in a minute. And Tyler, whatever else you want to add as we go into break.
Yeah, check in with him, and we got a lot more on this unemployment issue coming up later on in the show. It's a big issue today, and we're going to continue to press at this, as Dave said, until we're able to find a solution. And we'll find that solution on air if we have to, live, if that's what's going to solve this issue. We'll be back in just a moment with David Dulio and more on the Oakland County Megacast.
Hi, my name is Curt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/contain-COVID. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
The Oakland County Megacast continues. On our family of stations, I'm Tyler Kieft.
And I'm Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning in all across Oakland County and Lakes FM, 89.3 WBLD, 88.1 WBFH, the Biff in Bloomfield Hills and beyond. Thank you for watching us on Birmingham area television and tuning in to Civic Center TV and our other outlets online. You can also tune in today on Facebook. We are a Facebook Live channel of the Greater West Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce. We thank Suzanne and everyone there for making that possible. And wherever you happen to be tuning in, thank you very much. We're going to talk, as we do almost every day, about COVID-19 and the coronavirus. And over the next couple of minutes, we are going to continue to focus on this unemployment issue and other major issues that have been affecting us all here in the state of Michigan. Later on in the show, we're going to talk to Sally Pong from the Michigan Long-Term Care Ombudsman. She is actually, I said that wrong, a Michigan long-term care ombudsman, and she's going to talk about some of the challenges people are having with long-term care here in our state of Michigan. Very important as we take a look at the challenges of our nursing homes during this terrible COVID-19 crisis. But right now, David Dulio joins us. He's the professor of political science, Oakland University, and the director of Oakland University's Center for Civic Engagement. David, thank you very much for joining us here on the Megacast.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So you had a little bit of opportunity to hear the previous conversation. You got two groups of people in the state of Michigan that are having difficulty getting their unemployment checks. Just people who filed, and there were, 1 million filers. So we're understanding that that's going to be difficult. It doesn't mitigate the pain for those people that have not received their unemployment checks. And then, making matters even worse, Curt Lawson of the West Bloomfield Police Department confirmed in West Bloomfield alone right now, their detectives are working on 20 unemployment fraud cases. That's one small community across the whole state of Michigan. As a result, the state of Michigan's action is to suspend unemployment compensation to 350,000 people around the state as they fight fraud. And it's, certainly a direct approach to do it. We could debate whether it's the right approach to do it, but David, that's one of the many issues that we're facing right now, and it's got to be a fascinating time to be following state government.
Well, it certainly is, and you bring up a couple of the most brutal instances or most brutal examples of the problems that the state government is facing, right? And it's almost like it's a never-ending list of things that are being impacted and influenced by COVID-19. I mean, the unemployment issues that you raised, the initial difficulty of folks getting access to the benefits that they have coming to them, and the if there's 1 million filers and 340,000 potentially fraudulent cases, that's a third, right? A third of the cases potentially fraudulent. That's just a brutal hit for hundreds of thousands of people in our state. And I read this morning too that coronavirus is having a big impact on the small amount of funds that we were really going to have to put toward the roads in our state, right? I mean, with people stuck at home and not being able to drive, they're not going to the gas pump, they're not paying gas tax, which would fund those road repairs. Certainly not to the extent that we need it here. If people haven't forgotten how bad our roads are, but it's another example of how widespread the effects of COVID-19 are here in Michigan.
Well, it's having a huge impact on all of us, and let's just talk political here for a minute because that's your beat and and mine to some degree, and I don't like to get into right and left political. We don't do that here on the show, but it's fun and interesting and helpful to talk about what is going on in the political sphere. Is there a battle right now in the state of Michigan, a political battle for the hearts and minds of Michiganders? And is that part of every issue where the Republicans are hoping they're going to come out the big winner, the Democrats are hoping they're going to come out the big winner? And is that part of what is going into every decision that is being made in Lansing and around the state?
Well, I don't know if it's part of every decision that's being made, either say in the governor's office or in the legislature, because I'm not inside the heads of those individuals. But I would say that as an observer and analyst, everything's political. Right? I mean, there's and I think there are a couple of factors that are ratcheting that up for us here in Michigan. One is the and you know this very well, the increased polarization, almost historic levels of polarization that we're seeing, where both sides, right and left, are in their corners and they're not coming out. They're dug in, and everything that comes up, whether it's unemployment benefits, road funding, that was certainly the case before, but the nursing home policy that's in effect gets layered over with polarized politics, right? And another factor that ramps it up even more is the fact that we're in an election year, right? 2020 is a big year, and there's more at stake now, say, than in 2019, or there will be in 2021, just because of the fact that we're going to go to the polls in November, and everybody knows that Michigan is a really crucial state for the outcome of the presidential election.
Yeah, and that's even ramping it up more. You've got the legislature, the Republican-controlled legislature, been battling with the governor all the way through the coronavirus case, and then
that's a really good point, right? I mean, that's divided government, right? We're in that situation where you've got one branch of our elected offices controlled by the Democratic Party, and one branch, the legislature, both houses, controlled by the Republicans. So that just makes you throw that into the mix, and it makes it even more polarized. Some might even say more toxic.
Yeah, and then certainly complicated by the fact that the president really is concerned about Michigan. It was a key state in his victory last time, and if he expects to win again, it's going to be a big state. He's been really critical of the governor. Our governor is on the short list of vice presidential candidates, possibly. So, he's been saying that woman in Michigan, and she's been poking back at him at every opportunity. So, we try to set all that aside, and none of these people's jobs are easy, but it is fascinating to watch all this. And I just hope that it's not getting in the way. You know what is interesting? As we look at hyper-local politics, it seems it's about the last place that we're not seeing as much highly partisan activity. If you go to your local city council meeting, you might even have difficulty identifying which of your local elected officials, if you didn't already know, were Democrats or Republicans.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Some of those offices are nonpartisan, so they don't have those. Some of those office holders don't have those labels behind their name like some of the elected officials that we might be more familiar with. And I'd also say too that there's a saying about local government that there's no Democratic or Republican way to pick up the trash or plow the streets, right? So a lot of times that is where some more pragmatic thinking happens, where it's about solving the problem at hand rather than getting dragged into the maybe the national swirl of politics, if you will. But at the same time, right, we can certainly find examples of where local politics has gotten to the point where it makes us want to look away.
Typically, a crisis is really good for an incumbent. You don't have to answer this question, but I'm going to ask it, and if you're uncomfortable answering it, I totally get it. Is this crisis helping or hurting the governor?
That's a good question. I think it remains to be seen, right? I think that, we don't know where the end of this is, right? We might be at the end of the beginning, right? Rather than the beginning of the end. And I'm no epidemiologist or doctor, so I can't tell you that. But, from a political standpoint, the governor's not up for reelection for another couple years. And so she's got a lot of time before she has to worry about facing the voters. Now that might change if she's on the ticket with former Vice President Biden. But I think that, even if we think about the political process, say from now until Election Day in November, that's about 5 months, which is, as you know, also is an eternity, right? It's a lifetime in politics.
All right, I'll tell you one person. I'm going to answer my own question. I was going to ask you next, and then I'll ask for your feedback. David Coulter, Oakland County executive, coming in the heels of legendary Albrecht Patterson, who was here forever. Albrecht Patterson, Republican, David Coulter, former mayor from Ferndale, Democrat. I would say this crisis has been extraordinarily good for David Coulter.
Well, you make a really good point, and I think that's on the money. Not just for Dave Coulter, but for all incumbents who are on the ballot in 2020, certainly here in Michigan, right? I think if you think about, say, Dave Coulter, he's got to get through the primary in August 1st, but and even folks like Haley Stevens and Alyssa Slotkin, two members of the U.S. House of Representatives, members of the State House of Representatives, right? These folks are going to be campaigning after the August primary against folks who are challengers, right, which is a disadvantage to begin with. But those challengers are going to face additional hurdles, right? They will have maybe more trouble. I would say without a doubt more trouble campaigning as they might like to, especially in down ballot races like State House, where door-to-door campaigning is really important and is a hallmark of those kinds of campaigns. Challenger candidates are going to have a harder time raising money to compete with those already well-funded incumbents, right? So I think that all incumbents who are seeking re-election this year have a distinct advantage, even more so than they do in normal cycles.
All right, and then the third group of people that we really should be talking about right now is the people of the state of Michigan. And I'll tell you what, their voice has been heard on multiple issues louder and more effectively than I can remember in my lifetime, going all the way back to the 60s when I was a little kid. The protests that we saw, even on COVID-19, before the whole Black Lives Matters group of protests that are going on right now, the people in the state of Michigan and across our country, but right here at home, have never spoken more clearly and as loud as they are right now.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and you make a good case that it's on issues across the spectrum, right, and across the policy space, and that's a good thing, right? I think that's the fact that more and more people are seeing that, hey, maybe if I speak up, I can bring about some change that I'd like to see. That's a positive, right? And of course, we want those demonstrations and protests to happen in the right way and to do it in a way that's respectful and civil and productive, right? Rather than getting into destruction of property, et cetera, et cetera.
David Dulio is our guest, professor of political science, Oakland University, and director of the Oakland University Center for Civic Engagement. This has been fun talking to you. I appreciate you taking time to chat with you. When people ask me to speak in public, and the rare times that happens, I always like to talk about the evolution and the change in media because it has been so dramatic in my career and lifetime. And, CNN and Fox News and MSNBC, we didn't have animals like that even 5 or 10 years ago to the degree that we do now. And it's fascinating, a fascinating time that we're living in. And I'm sure you're going to have plenty of fodder for your students when they return this fall.
No doubt about it. There's always stuff to talk about.
All right. Well, thank you. Anything else you want to add before we say so long?
No, if you're happy, I'm happy.
All right, very good. Thank you, David. I appreciate it. David Dulio joining us from Oakland University. Tyler, the one thing I just want to mention real quick, we talk about all the partisan publications, and I mentioned this on the show. Even our major Detroit newspapers have a political bias that is conspicuous and long-term. But, you take a look at the TV stations, and it's a little bit harder to figure out our local TV stations if they have a political bias. And the one group that I really want to applaud, and if you're not familiar with them, if you're looking for news and information right now across the state of Michigan, I urge you to go look at bridgemi.com. It is a nonprofit, nonpartisan online news publication that is some of the best journalists in the state. And, Tyler, I'm a professional. I look for this stuff, and I try to find the partisan spin in their coverage, and I just can't find it.
It is really tough to find it in Bridges stuff, and I do agree with you on the angle of local TV news as well. I think in terms of television news, your local news, like what we're doing here and like we see on other news stations in the local area, is about as close as you can get to real, actual quality journalism in your local community in today's age with all the cable news we have. And that includes publications like Bridge Michigan and other newspaper publications that are really the front lines of the news in telling us what we need to know, and then we dissect it from there.
All right, so we're going to take a break here in a minute. When we come back a little later next hour, we're going to talk to Sally Pong. She is a Michigan long-term care ombudsman. Sally has served as the state's long-term care ombudsman since 2016 and brings over 20 years of experience with long-term care nursing home facilities and programs. And with all that we've had to go through with COVID-19, our nursing homes are right in the center right now, as we talked about a couple of minutes ago, of challenges in how we deal with COVID-19 patients. And politically, it's been a political storm too, with certainly people on the right blaming the governor for her actions to put people in nursing homes with COVID-19, and then accusations flying back from the governor at Michigan's Republicans saying they're just engaging in partisan politics. So the kind of stuff you would expect, but it is certainly an area where there is plenty of partisan debate going on. We'll try to strip away all that and the emotion and figure out what's really going on when we talk to Sally a little later on in the show. We're also going to talk to Rachael Kohl, Director of Workers' Rights Clinic, the Workers' Rights Clinic at the University of Michigan Law School. We'll continue our work today on what's going on with unemployment here in the state of Michigan. You are listening to 89.3 WBLD, Orchard Lake, West Bloomfield, Keagle Harbor, Sylvan Lake, and 88.1 WBFH, Bloomfield Hills. Those are our radio stations today in the Megacast. Thank you also for tuning in on our fantastic TV outlets on cable, Channel 15 in the West Bloomfield area, Channel 15 in the Birmingham area on Comcast, and also checking us out on Channel 99 on AT&T. And, of course, you can watch today on CivicCenterTV.com. Tyler?
Yes, and you can also watch us all show long today on the Facebook page of the Greater West Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce. The Megacast continues after this short break on our family of stations.
Coronavirus has put us to the test. Now it's time to put it to the test. We've greatly expanded testing in Michigan. So people who think they may have COVID-19 with symptoms like fever, cough, and shortness of breath can get tested. And those without symptoms who work in public can now get tested, as they could carry the virus. Start by calling your healthcare provider or contacting a testing site near you. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hello, I'm Dr. Betty Chu, Chief Quality Officer at Henry Ford Health System, and I'm with Wright Lassiter, Henry Ford Health System's CEO, to talk about coronavirus.
In uncertain times, it's natural to have questions. So I'm going to ask Dr. Chu to answer some of the common ones. First, why can't I visit my grandma to see if she's okay?
Because the elderly are at a higher risk for complications with this disease, and you could inadvertently infect her.
If I'm healthy, why can't I go out with my friends?
The larger the crowd you're exposed to, the higher the chance you could get infected and infect others.
If I have symptoms, why do I have to seek care?
While the disease isn't dangerous for most people, For others, it can be. We need to understand how serious your case is, because the right choices save lives. For more information, visit henryford.com or call 313-874-1055.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe.
And I'm Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning in all across Oakland County. Tyler Keefe in our West Bloomfield studios. I'm in our Troy studios today. And wherever you are, we thank you very much for tuning in on our great radio stations and television outlets. And I also want to remind you, you can easily tune in anytime on civiccentertv.com. If you want to catch interviews that we've done earlier today, over the past couple of days, or interviews that we've done over the past 61 days of this special broadcast, we invite you to go to civiccentertv.com, go to the coronavirus page for information, and go to the Megacast page, and you will find all of that video. Tyler, 61 days. We started this out. We had no idea then we'd be here 61 days later still doing this. But it continues to be useful. We're continuing to be able to do good, and therefore, let's just keep up the good work. So here, just a couple of things real quick. First of all, congratulations to everyone in the West Bloomfield Township Hall. They are reopening today. And if you have some business to do with them, stop on by, put on your mask, wash your hands, observe social distancing, do all the things you need to do, and they will be there to serve you. Tyler, it's so darn confusing keeping track of all of the executive orders, all of the 109 executive orders that have been issued by the governor.
It is. It's really tough to navigate a lot of those, and there's been a great variety of them in many different facets and many different issues that have arisen during the COVID-19 crisis, and trying to navigate all of that and figure out what's right and what's wrong, it can be tricky.
Okay, so we have our list of our COVID-19 vocabulary, but we probably should be keeping a list of the executive orders that are still in effect, 109 total, but there are many that are still in effect. So I thought we would run down those. I mean, this is community television, radio, this kind of thing we can do here, right?
Sure.
We got time until we got our next couple of guests, so let's take a look, because heck, I mean, I'm confused and I deal with this every day. Credit to clickondetroit.com and producer Jeff, if you would find this story right at the homepage of clickondetroit.com, you probably have already linked to it on our coronavirus page. But here is what is still in effect. Order 26, extension of the April 2020 Michigan income tax filing deadlines. That's good. So yes. If you haven't filed your Michigan income tax, it's still extended. The end date will be the end of the declared state of emergency or a date reasonably related to the end of the state of emergency. So they've delayed filing your Michigan income tax, and there's no date, as I can see, Tyler, for when they're due.
Yeah, there isn't a set official date because of, like you said, it's either going to be the end of the state of emergency or shortly after. It may be similar to what the federal one is around July 15th, but it's unclear at the moment.
Order 28 says that water must be restored to occupied residences. It was issued March 28th, and there is no end date. It ends with the state of emergency. Protecting workers who stay at home, stay safe when they or their close contacts are sick. And I'm not exactly sure the impact of that, but that is still in effect. Temporary extension of certain FOIA deadlines to facilitate COVID-19 emergency response efforts.
Yeah, that just allows people to get to file requests for information from the government on what's been going on in the government during all of this. And there's some extensions to how long those can take to be executed that are being extended, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, really, that one is on the side of the government. They're making it easier for the government to respond to FOIA requests because for quite a while, your elected officials weren't in their offices. They're working from home. So understandable, a little inconvenient for everybody. Mitigating the economic harm of COVID-19 pandemic through the creation of a spirits buyback program for the restaurants. So the restaurants that were having a lot of financial trouble, the state was willing to buy some booze back from them. Awful nice. And that program has not been rescinded. I think we need more of it out in the public right now because the bars are opening, but that'll all work itself out. Temporary, I didn't see now some of these executive orders, Order 52, somehow, Tyler, Order 52 fell off our radar. We never reported it. Temporary extension of certain pesticide applicator certificates. Now that's kind of targeted, but I guess to people in the pest business, very important. The Michigan Coronavirus Task Force on Racial Disparities. So, this is one of the key factors as we talked about the impact, the uneven impact of COVID-19 having a much greater impact on communities of color. Take that and throw it on top of everything else that's going on. These two issues are related, but the task force is still doing its job. It's still out there, and that's good news. Temporary suspension of certain timing requirements related to the commencement of civil and probate actions and proceedings. And that's for the lawyers out there. We did talk about that on the show, making it possible for timing to be adjusted. So, if you have a probate situation or something else going on, your attorney can make it happen for you. Am I getting too deep in the weeds on some? I'm just reading this. I've not pre-read this list. Temporary relief from certain restrictions and requirements governing the provision of medical services. So no end date there. Certain restrictions and requirements governing the provision of medical services. I don't really know, but I'm sure if I was a doctor, I would know what that meant. Temporary COVID, here's 62. Executive Order 62 to end on June 12th. Temporary COVID-19 protocols for entry into the Michigan Department of Corrections facilities and in transfers to and from department custody. So that is for our prisoners here, and that ends on the 12th. Temporarily suspending the expiration of PPOs. I didn't know why would they want to suspend personal protection orders? Oh, I see. It's suspending the expiration. So if there is a PPO, it just stays in effect. That makes sense because they didn't have the staff to deal with that. Okay. We clear on that one?
Yes.
Okay. Affirming anti-discrimination policies and requiring certain healthcare providers to develop equitable access to care protocols needed with so many people of color having big challenges during the coronavirus, and that remains in effect. No end date there. Provision of K-12 education during the remainder of the 2019-20 year. And again, end date and what's going to be happening with education still in limbo. A lot of school districts, Tyler, say we're going to do this, do that, do the other thing. But I don't believe we've had specific direct leadership from the State Department of Education on exactly what they're asking schools to do and how all the funding challenges are really going to get sorted out. Not figured out yet.
No, and it's still an issue that's very much at debate right now. They're going to have another revenue estimating conference coming up soon that will help determine that, but that's still a big issue coming up.
Here's one I didn't, again, another one, number 74, Executive Order 74. I never saw this one. Encouraging the use of electronic signatures and remote notarization, witnessing, and visitation. Now, that really makes sense. Why not just leave that thing in effect forever? Shouldn't we be able to e-sign things as we go to a new normal where a lot of us are working at home?
I would think so. If people are still working at home, that would make that a lot easier and a lot more simplistic. And if it worked well during the pandemic, why not after?
This is going to end on June 30th. This is Order 75. It allows your local municipalities and others to hold meetings they would generally hold in public to do them on Zoom and other things. The school boards, local communities, local municipalities, they can only do that until June 30th. And, the West Bloomfield Township Hall, a good example, they're opening up today. So we should see most of those facilities open back up again soon. And I'm sure the boards and the councils and the other groups that need to meet and conduct public business can do, what they've done at the local Coney Island, put some plexiglass and shower curtains up if they need to make it all work.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to social distance at the dais for a lot of these boards, but they still have time to figure it out. And as of now, at least the boards that we cover here on Civic Center TV and their meetings, there has been some initial discussion at least.
Order 76 is a temporary expansion in unemployment eligibility and cost sharing. And, that's fine and dandy, but if you can't get your darn unemployment check, what good does it do you, right?
Right. It doesn't do any help.
Here's a long one. This affects me personally, and this is many paragraphs. I'm going to see if I can shorten this. Order 78, the temporary extension of the validity of driver's licenses, state identification cards, and certain vehicle registrations. It ends on July 31st, and there's another story we might want to do. But this order continues to temporarily extend the validity of certain operators and chauffeurs' licenses, state ID cards, and vehicle registrations. So, Tyler, you can do a lot of this stuff online, but in my case, I moved, I had my birthday, my driver's license expired at the end of March, and I can't update any of my stuff because they all have new addresses. So, everything, all of my driver's license is expired, my license plate tabs are expired, and on, and not a darn thing I could do. So the Secretary of State's office has just opened up, right?
Right.
And so what you're supposed to do is go online to make an appointment. And I thought, well, I'll just make an appointment at the West Bloomfield or the Troy Secretary of State office, and I'll be all set, off to the races. Well, go try to make an appointment online at the Secretary of State office. You're going to get a date that is like in August right now, or July at least. So the state's going to have to do something about that one, because I don't think that I can make that happen by June 30th. I can't get an appointment. I think it's safe to say any reasonable police officer that in the unlikely event that I or the tens or hundreds of thousands of other people around the state who are affected by this, I hope that folks will be reasonable. I'm sure they will. Temporary prohibition against entering premises for the purpose of removing or excluding a tenant or mobile home owner from their home. That means you can't get evicted, and that's going to end real soon, June 11th. I wonder if we're going to see a rash of evictions right after June 11th, Tyler, to just a couple days from now.
I would hope not. I would hope that as people are coming back to work, that landlords continue to give a little bit more leeway for people to get a couple paychecks under their belt, but who's to see?
All right, extending the use of telehealth services. We've been all doing a lot of online health. There's less of that now that your local doctor's office is open and more willing to see you. But some of the things that you had to go to the doctor for, state now says you can continue to do electronically. Temporary extension of deadlines for boards of review, kind of deep in the weeds in your local municipality. But that, if you are worried about something regarding county equalization, your property taxes, they're extending that off to the end of the year. Call your local offices in your local municipality for more information. COVID-19 return to school advisory council executive order of the governor. Tyler, those are the folks that the governor set up to try to figure out what to do with school, and they're still doing their work. So that is still in place. I didn't know there was a restriction on price gouging. It ends on June 12th, though.
Yeah, that's a restriction. I remember hearing about that. That's a restriction on raising your prices during the pandemic because, of course, you're not getting as much of your product being bought and being sold out. So you're raising your prices to try to bridge that gap, and it affects people who are unemployed or who are missing paychecks. So that, as people come back to work, is probably going to be one that comes and goes.
Well, you got to watch this stuff. And this is why I think it's important to go through this list here. We're taking the time to do it. It's, it's always a little fine print you got to watch out for. So keep an eye as you go out next Monday and you're traveling around the state, and just make sure that be careful, because the laws are going to be out of the way. There'll be no law prohibiting somebody from ripping you off and charging you too much for something. I think by now, fortunately, I think everybody has toilet paper, though. They probably would have called that the toilet paper executive order.
Yeah, most likely.
Temporary enhance. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Temporary enhancements, operational capacity, flexibility, and efficiency of pharmacies. That ends June 16th. Pharmacies all getting back online. Declaration of state emergency for Midland. That ends on the 16th. And our heart goes out to the people of Midland that are suffering as the governor now is to figure out not only how to fix the damn roads, but Scott Tyler, we got to figure out how to fix the damn dams too here in Michigan.
Mounting issues in Midland. It's still very much ongoing. That may even be extended.
Enhanced protections for residents and staff of long-term care facilities. We're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes when we talk to Sally Pong here, who is the Michigan Long-Term Care Ombudsman. That ends on June 17th. She might have some thoughts on that. Declaration of emergency for Midland. That ends June 16th. Declaration of emergency on the COVID-19. So that is a state emergency declaration. Ends on June 19th. Amending certain executive orders. That will never end, it says here. Extending there's another one for me. Extending the expiration date for watercraft registration, July 31st. I have an old tag on my boat. And, when I see the sheriff driving around the lake, kind of scares me a little bit. Good. If you got a boat and you're expired like I am because you can't update your tags, don't worry. You've got till July 31st. But don't go any longer than you need to. Most people, Tyler, can do that online, by the way. And if you have a change of address like I am, you have to work on it. Temporary relief from standard vapor pressure restrictions on gasoline sales. I have no idea what that means, but I know they're always mucking around with the actual mix of gas to make sure that it has something to do with auto emissions from the summer to the winter. And we usually have a grade change in the summer. And you know what? I think that's the reason our fuel prices go up in the summer. So, yes. I think that's what that is, and that'll end on June 30th. So maybe get your fuel in your car a couple of days before June 30th and look for prices going up a little bit. Just my guess. Providing alternative notice of public hearings under Michigan's tax abatement status. We're going to get back to most of our municipal meetings and hearings issues back by the end of the month. Just looking at, I said I was going to read all of these. A lot of them are very localized and don't impact everybody. Here's a good one. Order 106, Tyler, establishing a deadline to redeem property for non-payment of delinquent property taxes. Let's read that again. Establishing a deadline to redeem property. So if you don't pay your tax, and now there's a deadline to get your property back, June 29th, they're having some issue about your property, some tax issues. Go look at that. Talk to your lawyer. Talk to somebody before June 29th. It's important with all these deadlines and protections that were set up, and they're all getting ready to expire. It's important that you're keeping an eye on these things. Some other boards and other things that don't really affect most people. Temporary safety measures for food selling establishments and pharmacies. So that ends on the 12th of June. There have been some things that have been protecting them, like the grocery stores had protections so they wouldn't get sued while they were keeping all of us fed. And, Tyler, what an amazing job as we wrap this up, that the restaurants and the supply chain and everybody has done to really make sure that we had the goods that we needed. For the most part, almost everything was available.
Yeah, most everything was available to us, and that's good. Glad that happened.
So for the most part, the rest of the stuff is bureaucratic. Here's one last one: expanding child care access during the COVID-19 pandemic. If you're benefiting from some expanded child care, that will end on July 7th. Go check it out. All of the remaining executive orders, many of them ending over the next couple of weeks, are listed on clickondetroit.com. We'll get it on our website. Some of them could affect you in a very important way. Keep an eye on that. It's complicated. Read through the list and find out the one or two things that impact you, and make sure that you're taking full advantage of the extensions that are available to you, or make sure that you're in compliance with the things you need to be in compliance with. Well, big news today in one of our municipalities. West Bloomfield Town Hall opens. We're going to take a quick break, Tyler, and I think Eric is standing by over in the West Bloomfield Township Hall.
Yes, she is standing by. West Bloomfield Town Hall, of course, reopened to the public today. There are social distancing measures in place and capacity limits in place. Erica will give us that full report, and we'll have more on the Oakland County Megacast coming up very shortly after this quick break.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
We know that we're asking Americans to do a lot right now. So we're asking everyone to be selfless for others so that we can protect those who are most susceptible to this virus.
A question I often get asked is, why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people.
It's what we refer to when we ask people to stay at least 6 feet apart.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants, not going to theaters where there are a lot of people. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others who might actually be infected or infect you.
We all have a role to play in preventing person-to-person spread of this disease, which can be deadly for vulnerable groups. For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
The Oakland County Megacast continues on our family of stations. I'm Tyler Keefe.
And I'm Dave Scott. Tyler, do we need to shake the radio and shake TV, wake people up after that long list of executive orders
maybe
we just went through?
Yeah, we might have to, Dave, honestly.
All right. Well, it's important. These executive orders impact so many different areas of our lives. Many of them are beginning to expire. And again, I would strongly urge you to go take a look at the list. It'll be at civiccentertv.com, or go to Click on Detroit, find the article, and find out the things that impact you in your life. Speaking about impacting you in your life, West Bloomfield Township Hall is now open, as well as many of the other town halls around our community. Our own Erica Jones is in West Bloomfield Township Hall. Erica, how's it going?
Hi, Dave. It's going great. I'm here, like you said, at the West Bloomfield Township Hall with our good friend, West Bloomfield Township Clerk, Debbie Binder, to tell us a little bit about their reopening to the public today. So, Debbie, tell us how, if I can flip the camera, how things are going, how operations are with people being let back in.
I always want to add, too, that we really were never officially closed. We were working from home, so those phones were answered and residents' needs were met to the best of our ability given the executive orders. But we are officially open today with the doors open to Town Hall. We have precautions in place. If you come down, we have plexiglass at the windows for sneeze guards. We have our masks that we're wearing. We have, we've taken precautions with hand sanitizer, with access to the building, limited access. The people who are working here are taking temperature checks every day when they come in. So we're really taking steps to mitigate the dangers that people face coming into Town Hall and make it as easy and accessible as can be.
Yeah. Do you think that people are comfortable coming in now that?
I think we've been slower, but some of being slower is this is the first day we're open. So it's that word getting out that you can actually come down to Town Hall. The last few days, we've been watching people come up to the doors with their to turn in their apps for the election. And we meet them at the door to take those apps because we know that they're frustrated when they come all the way to the door to find out we aren't open. But today they're going to come to the door, find out that we are open, and we'll take those apps right at the counter. I think it will get to where people are more and more comfortable. It'll increase as they get used to it and as they get more aware that we're open.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that insight. We really appreciate you talking to us.
Can I interrupt and ask Debbie? Can I ask Debbie just a question or two myself? Debbie, can you hear me?
Sure. You wanted to ask me that we're almost at our 2010 census rate, right? Right.
Well, I got 3 or 4 things. Sure. Okay. How are we doing on the census? That's the first one.
About 77% right now, which we were at 77.3 last time. So I think by October 31st, we can blow that out of the park.
All right, well, let's blow it out of the park, Debbie Binder. If somebody has not responded to the number of requests for census information, all they got to do is go to the website, right?
It's as easy as going to 2020census.gov and filling out the information right there on the website. And it also avoids, at the point that they do send people door to door, you won't have someone coming to your door. Takes less than 10 minutes, Dave. It really takes less than 5. It's 9 questions, and it's available at 2020census.gov. It's easy. You go up to the top of the page, respond. It walks you through it. You'd be done in probably 5 minutes. 10 is probably an overestimate.
All right, easy weasy. So go make it
Easy-weasy.
happen. It is easy weasy, and that
It
is
is.
how local government gets all the money that it needs to take care of all the services that you folks provide. A couple of other quick things. Of course, we have an election coming up in May, and another election coming up, a primary in May, and then our general election coming up in November, as everybody knows. There's been some controversy, if you will. State of Michigan decided to send out invitations for people to register for absentee ballots. Have those gone out in the mail yet? And are people responding, Debbie?
Well, let me clarify one important thing. It's not a May primary, it's an August primary. August 4th is the primary, and November 3rd is the general election. So
Yes,
May is,
forgive me.
May is
Right, we're already
over.
past May. I don't know why I
Yeah.
said that. So,
That's okay. I just want to make sure people have clarification on that.
no, I got that. But had these invitations, applications is what they really are for an absentee ballot. Have they gone out? Have people seen those?
We know that they have gone in the mail, or we're quite confident that they have gone in the mail, but we have not seen an influx yet in those applications. So we believe that they're in the mail process. They are either in the outgoing from the state or they're incoming to town hall. And we know that possibly starting today, we're going to get a large amount of them back. We are getting some back electronically as well, but we don't know for sure that they've landed. We do know that they will hit in a large quantity. If we sent out about 11,000 on a permanent absent voter list, that leaves about 41,000 registered voters that aren't on our permanent absent voter list that should be getting that letter. So we do know if that letter hits, the numbers will be huge in the amount of returns we get.
Okay, and even if people did not get that, or they missed it in the mail, and ended up getting lost in a flyer or brochure that came in your mailbox at about the same time, what do people need to do if they want to vote absentee coming up in August or November?
Okay, so for August and November, it's a dual application. That means there's one application to fill out for both elections. Absentee voting is a 2-step process, meaning you have to fill out an application. Once we have an application confirming there's a voter, we then send a ballot. Getting that application is really easy. You can either be on our permanent voter application list, and we will send you that application every election you're eligible for. To get that, you can simply call the clerk's office. There's a sign up online at the clerk's page, or send an email. Easy contact to have us add you to that list that you get that application. And it's also just as easy to call or email or contact the clerk's office. I can get a list of contact information later and send something to the clerk's office. We'll send you that application in the mail, or you can go online to the clerk's page and download the application. Or there's also a state form at the state of Michigan where you could select both August and November, and you will get both ballots, one for August and one November, in the mail, as long as we have a complete application returned with your signature on it. We do verify signatures when we receive an application and when we receive a ballot. So it's important when you fill out that application that you sign it and you complete which elections you want the ballot for.
Debbie,
You know,
we're tight.
Dave, I
Debbie,
hate to interrupt, but we have to let Debbie get back to work. She's in the middle of a conference, so if we could scoot along.
all right.
But
that's
thank you so much,
fine.
Debbie. We really
Little-
appreciate it.
Dave,
Thanks,
I'm
Debbie.
happy to come back and give you a schedule of what the conference is and come back and talk to you, because absentee voting is critical, and we really need to get everybody aware that this is that's their option now their right is constitutional right to vote by absentee for no reason. And this year we might even encourage it with everything going on. So happy to come back and talk about it and encourage everyone to come out and vote.
Hey,
and
Debbie, before
Yep.
you go, congratulations on being recognized as one of the top 5 clerks in the state of Michigan. Bravo. Good job.
Thank you. It was really exciting. Really, really, really an honor and exciting. And I was among some really, wonderful colleagues. So it was exciting to be among that crowd.
All right. Well, congratulations. We'll talk about the other things. We'll talk about them later. Thank you, Debbie Binder. Thank you very much for taking a minute. I know you're very busy with us. And Erica
We have the conference going on, so that was all. But thank you for
go do your thing.
Always
it's
find
cool.
time for you, and thank you for covering the important issues that we have in West Bloomfield.
No problem. Thank you very much. Erica Jones, anything else from Town Hall?
Thank you so much, Debbie. No, not much else. I'm just gonna walk back out into the lobby where people from the public are allowed to enter now and take care of any needs they may have here at Town Hall. So let's check it out and see if any more people have entered since I was last out here. All right, so
yeah. Oh, there you go. I appreciate it. We're going to run along too. Thank you for your update, and I appreciate it. Erica Jones in the newly reopened, yes, they've always been at work, but the newly reopened Town Hall, as West Bloomfield and many of our other communities are beginning to get back to work in the midst of this COVID-19 crisis. Dave Scott, Tyler Keefe here on the Megacast all around Oakland County. But what I was going to ask Debbie, Tyler, is if all of the absentee ballot matters and issues are similar in all the other communities, and I assume, Tyler, most of the clerks work in a very similar way.
Yeah, a lot of them are working in a similar fashion in these times. It's been tough having people out of the office, and there's been a lot to get done. But now with things reopening and these town halls and these city halls coming back, hopefully some catch up will be played and played successfully.
All right, we're going to take a very quick break. We return. Sally Pong will join us, Michigan Long-Term Care Ombudsman. We are going to talk about long-term care here in the state of Michigan. Very important time to be having this dialogue. We'll be back in just a minute, Tyler.
Yes, we will. Sally Pong and more coming up on this last hour of the Oakland County Megacast for today. On this Wednesday morning, we'll be back just after this short break. You are listening to the Oakland County Megacast on our family of radio and TV stations.
Coronavirus has put us to the test. Now it's time to put it to the test. We've greatly expanded testing in Michigan. So people who think they may have COVID-19 with symptoms like fever, cough, and shortness of breath can get tested. And those without symptoms who work in public can now get tested, as they could carry the virus. Start by calling your healthcare provider or contacting a testing site near you. Learn more at michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hello, I'm Dr. Faust, Medical Director for the Oakland County Health Division. Coronavirus disease 2019, or COVID-19, is a new disease caused by a new respiratory virus named SARS-CoV-2. COVID-19 was first identified in December 2019. There is currently no vaccine to prevent coronavirus disease 2019. The best way to prevent illness is to avoid being exposed to this virus. Wash your hands often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds, especially after going to the bathroom, before eating, and after blowing your nose, coughing, or sneezing. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects and surfaces using a regular household cleaning spray or wipe. Avoid close contact with people who are sick, and avoid touching your eyes, your nose, your mouth. Cover your cough or sneeze with a tissue and throw the tissue in the trash. Finally, stay home when you're sick. For more information about coronavirus disease 2019, go to oakgov.com/health or call 1-800-848-5533.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast on our family of TV and radio stations. I'm Tyler Keefe.
And I'm Dave Scott. Very good for you. Very good to have you with us here today on radio and television outlets across Oakland County. I'm in our Troy, Michigan studios, Tyler Keefe in our West Bloomfield studios, and it's good to have you with us. Coming up in a couple of minutes, we're going to talk to Rachael Kohl, the Director of Workers' Rights at the Workers' Rights Clinic at the University of Michigan Law School. She works in particular on unemployment law matters, and we have a mess. I mean, let's just be honest. We have a unemployment tragedy going on here in the state of Michigan. We'll get back into that issue in a couple of minutes. The other real challenge we have, it's always a challenge taking care of people in long-term care facilities, but it has been even more difficult during the entire COVID-19 crisis. To help us take a look at the issues surrounding that is Sally Pong, Michigan Long-Term Care Ombudsman. Sally, thank you very much for taking time to join us today.
Thank you, Dave. So the Long-Term Care Ombudsman is a program that advocates on behalf of residents in long-term care settings, so nursing homes, adult foster care, and home for aged. And our authority comes from the Older Americans Act, the Older Michiganians Act. And so we are federally and state funded, but our charge through those two acts is to advocate on behalf of the resident, and we are the resident's voice. So when we think about who is our boss and who are we accountable to, it's the residents that live in these settings.
And I'm sure you could take the rest of the time that we have allotted for our show today to tell us why you are needed. But what kind of things cross your desk?
Sure. Well, as you can imagine, recently we have been bombarded by questions about COVID-19, and most particular questions about testing, questions about where people should be located in the healthcare system if they have COVID-19, when family members can get back in and visit with residents. Residents right now are pretty much isolated into their rooms in a lot of these settings, and we're very concerned about the impact that that has on residents at this time.
All right, so let's dissect each of those because you set it up great for me. Thank you very much. Sally Pong, Michigan Long-Term Care Ombudsman. Do the easy one first. People can't visit right now. Where you're finally able to visit somebody at a conventional hospital, but we're not allowing visits right now. Do you see a date where that might change, and how are people interacting during this time?
Sure. So first I'll talk about how people are interacting. When the federal government, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, put a ban in place on visiting directly with residents, having physical contact or physical visits within the building, they did make a requirement, though, that providers, nursing home providers, need to make efforts to help residents communicate with their loved ones in the community, whether it's friends or family, through other means of electronic communication, whether that be a cell phone, through Facebook, Skype, through an iPad. So there is that requirement that nursing homes make those efforts to make that communication available. And we also know that some family members are doing what we call window visits, where they're going to the nursing home and being able to visit through the glass to be able to see their loved one and for their loved one to see them. I think that can be startling sometime for residents. So we always want to caution that if you're doing that, just coordinate with the staff in advance so that we aren't, that would be terrifying for any of us if we saw someone outside of our window, but to coordinate. And for those that are doing the visits, use the physical distancing, make sure you're wearing a mask, and be careful if you're leaving the sidewalks or the paved areas, because we don't want you to have an injury as well.
So, Sally, this is why I love doing this show, because I always learn something that, who's reporting about window visits in the media in general? I haven't heard that anywhere. So, I always want to make sure I understand this, because we've seen some crazy stuff. Yesterday, we had one of our reporters, Erica, was at a Coney Island because the restaurants are opening up, and there was a shower curtain in front of a booth at the Coney. Well, when would you ever expect to see that? It was really a very innovative idea that the Coney came up with. So you're telling me at nursing homes, family members, if like the nursing home is on the ground floor, a family member can go like right up to the window and they're outside the building, or do they set something up in the building? Is this exactly the way it sounds?
Dave, right now, the only kind of visits that are allowed are those window visits. So the visitor has to stay outside of the building. They're not allowed to enter yet. But we've seen in some other states where local companies like construction businesses have brought in large equipment to lift people up, like one of the booms to lift people up to the second or third floor so they can look in the window and visit. We've also seen in Michigan where communities have come together and they've done parades. Like over Mother's Day, there were a number of car parades where cars lined up and had signs on the cars, saying hi to their family members, and drove through parking lots so that residents could watch the parade and know that they were still part of the community and people hadn't forgotten about them. That's what's most important right now.
Yeah, it's a really good idea. But if your loved one is on the ground floor of a nursing home, it wouldn't be unusual to go up there and just knock on the window and wave and say hello. You're not going to be able to talk through the glass, or maybe you can on your phone. So yeah, crazy. I had no idea. Thank you for. It seems like if that's all you can do, that's all you can do, right? And at least your family member knows you care.
Yes. Yep.
All
And
right.
you can put eyes on your loved one.
I love it. Sally Pong, Michigan Long-Term Care Ombudsman, here joining us on the Megacast. Testing, is it getting better? Are we getting the tests we need?
Definitely testing's improving. I'm fortunate to sit on a work group at the state that are really focusing hard on the testing concerns and issues across the state. They have started to work with the National Guard and the Michigan State Police and bring their supports and efforts together to help test in certain areas across the state. And those sites that have been selected so far where testing has been completed were based on the prevalence of COVID-19. So there have been over 20 counties now where testing has been offered to nursing homes. And of course, testing in our state is still optional. It is not mandatory. It's a voluntary test, but they are starting to get those test results back, and they're working through, I think they've planned already up to 53 counties in the state where they have a plan in place to test, and then hopefully they'll continue with the other 30 counties and get those completed.
Crazy me, I would just assume that there would be, given the prevalence of testing and the capabilities, that there would be on-site testing in every nursing home in the state, but clearly that's not practical and we're not there yet. But I appreciate your update, and at least we know some progress is being made. Final question, political hot potato, clearly, as whether or not COVID-19 patients should have been returning to nursing homes in the state of Michigan has been a national issue in our political front, and it now is the epicenter of a major battle between the Republican legislature and our governor. Governor has already come back and essentially apologized or suggested that what we've been doing is not a good plan. But as we stand right now today, where are we? Are COVID-19 patients going to nursing homes in Michigan?
Yeah, Dave, people that are testing positive and coming out of hospitals, or people from other settings where those settings can't meet their needs because they don't have appropriate PPE or staffing, are moving to what we call the COVID hubs, or other facilities who've just created a unit where they can care for people with COVID-19. So I think the biggest concern in addressing that need is having the facilities available and having staff available in those settings. And I believe that if the state had had other options available to them, they would have picked something that was more what's being requested now, of having only entire facilities treat people with COVID-19 and not commingle those that are negative with those that are positive. But those options didn't exist. So I think the state made the best decisions they could at the time with the data that was known. But I think it's so important to focus on the fact that we have to have adequate staff to meet people's needs. We have to have adequate PPE, and we have to have really strong infection prevention practices in place. That's
how these COVID hubs just help people understand. And I think I got this, and we talked about this recently in the show, but the COVID hubs are unique special facilities or parts of facilities that are specifically set up to accommodate COVID-19 patients that need extended care. Is that correct?
That's correct, Dave. So from the nursing homes that already existed in Michigan, about 20 of them stepped up and made application to be designated by the state as serving as a hub facility. And I believe in all of those facilities, it's just one unit that they're operating, or maybe 2 units, but it's not the entire facility. So they do have residents that existed in the facility that lived there prior to becoming a hub, who they have to protect from COVID-19. And then they're taking in new people who do have COVID-19. So it's almost as though they're operating 2 facilities under one roof. They have to have separate staff and lots of separation between those 2.
I've got 30 seconds, unfortunately, because we got Rachael Kohl standing by from U of M. I want to give her all the time that she deserves. But to the best of your ability to answer this without stepping in it, is this a political issue that's getting blown out of proportion, or are there people that are just not safe right now in nursing homes? Because there are, even in these hubs, there are people with COVID-19 and people that don't have COVID-19.
Yeah, and Dave, I don't have a quick answer for that, but I think facilities are doing the best they can to keep people safe. I think regardless if we had hubs or not, we were going to have facilities that had people with COVID-19 and those without. So as much attention as we're giving to the concept of hubs, we have to make sure all facilities are putting all of those protections in place for any resident that's entering the building at any time.
Yeah, I think some people would suggest that some of these patients would have been better off going to a TCF or a suburban in our area and not going back to nursing homes. I know that's what the Republicans are making at the center of their point. Is that not practical, or is that, Monday morning quarterbacking, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Dave, I think the Ombudsman program concerns with people going to those large centers like TCF is that although there might be healthcare providers who can meet their needs, we have concerns like how can they do specialized diets? Is the space that's allocated for each person living in that unit, can they allow for the equipment that might be necessary? Do they have the specialized beds? Do they have the lifts to physically transfer someone that might be immobile? What are the restrooms like? I think that's the biggest barrier. And then for people with cognitive decline, that large environment with the noise and the lighting can really have a negative impact.
Yeah, and not the least of which, with all that, and then are we ostracizing those people too by separating them from the rest of their community? Yeah. There are so many sides to every issue. Thank you very much. We could do this again when we have more time. Sally, I hope you would come back and we'll continue our dialogue.
I'd be happy to. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate the time today.
All right, Sally Pong, Michigan long-term ombudsman. And Tyler, those are the answers to questions that we were seeking for the past several days. So I really appreciate Sally coming with us. We're going to take a very quick time out. Yes. I'm going to send it right to break, Tyler, and we will be back in just a moment. This is the Megacast. Rachael Kohl is standing by, Director of Workers' Rights Clinic, University of Michigan Law School, and she'll be with us when we return on the Megacast.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards. Back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart. Keep wearing a mask in public. And if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast on our family of stations. I'm Tyler Kieft.
And I'm Dave Scott. Thank you very much for joining us here in the Megacast on 89.3 WBLD, 88.1 The Biff, and on municipal television stations all across Oakland County. Joining us now is Rachael Kohl, the Director of Workers' Rights Clinic, University of Michigan Law School. That's a lot to put on a business card, Rachael. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Yes, it is. It's there's a lot of different titles at that school, but it's a great place to work.
You must be the busiest person in the world right now. We have an unemployment crisis going on in the state of Michigan. I'm just going to reset super quick, then I'd like your comments. Over 1 million people collecting unemployment in the state. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Almost 2.
Okay, well, 2, oh my gosh, 2 million people. And then we have a lot of people like Lauren Kinniston, who we had on the show earlier, who filed in early March and hasn't seen squat and has almost no communication in spite massive efforts. And then now we hear there's a fraud problem. We checked in with the West Bloomfield Police Department, one of our departments this morning. They say they have 20 or more working fraud cases in that one community alone. And the state of Michigan says, well, there's fraud out there. We're just going to cut off 350,000 unemployment checks around the state of Michigan. Is that the current state of affairs? Are we close to being right on all that?
I mean, yes and no. I think you said a lot of things. And so yes, there has been a lot of potential fraudulent activity that the agency is trying to review right now, and the agency's sort of in a lose-lose position here, right? Because if they don't flag everybody and people get through the cracks and these imposters, these are imposter claims, not just like these people are using somebody else's social security number and filing benefits and it's an identity theft situation. So if the agency doesn't flag these cases, then they're going to pay out benefits to people that are fraudsters, that are imposters. And if they don't flag these cases, then they're going to pay out these benefits to them. If they do flag the cases, then people are going to not get benefits for a short period of time.
It is. You're right. It's a lose. Yeah, it's a lose-lose. I totally get that. But you said something interesting. You said they flag everybody. Do you have any information to know how the state decided of these 350,000 or so people who would get flagged, or did they just arbitrarily pick those people?
Well, so that's actually a very interesting question, Dave. So the state in 2013 implemented this program called MIDAS. That's the computer program that adjudicates all of the claims and flags people's issues, which is actually part of the same reason why so many people are held up right now. If you're seeing additional claim required or non-monetary eligibility, that's actually a MIDAS flag. And it was over-programmed to actually try to flag and deny people benefits for any possible reason. And we actually see that. We know that they over-programmed it because from 2013 to 2015, there was a false fraud scandal in Michigan where the agency issued over 60,000 determinations of fraud, which for context, in these 2 years, 60,000 determinations of fraud is more fraud than either of the last 2 decades. So that's a lot of fraud in those 2 years. And after they went back and reviewed those claims, they found that they were wrong 93% of the time. So we know that this is actually a very over-programmed, over-calibrated computer system. And it has not been subject to any public review since 2013, since it was implemented. And this is the same system that they are using today. And we know that the system is also not user-friendly. I mean, who knows what additional claim required means? Who knows what non-monetary eligibility means if you are not the programmer in that case? So I don't know what they're using to flag. I don't know because that's not public information. They haven't made it public. I've asked for that, and I haven't gotten it. And I've asked for it for years, and this is a thing that so I don't know what they're doing, and so but I do know that this is a very serious issue, and it's also a national issue. Michigan's not the only one that has these fraudulent cases. This is a very national problem.
Forgive me, and I know I'm editorializing a little bit here because I'm very emotional about this issue because I don't like to see people right now not getting their unemployment checks. 2 million people. I know, and I know you're emotional about it too, and that's good. We're going to take this emotion and get it to work for us. So that's all cool. But here essentially, and again, I'm editorializing, but here essentially the state has shifted the burden of that fraud to those who are unemployed. They're saying, because you're saying 93% are wrong, 93% of their assessments from this computer program are incorrect, that there is not fraud in 90 some odd percent of the cases. So the state just says, well, I'm going to take the easy way out. I'm just going to not pay unemployment and we'll sort it out down the road. So 93% of the people who are not the result of fraud, and maybe the other 7% who didn't cause the fraud but are the victim of it, they're all paying the price right now by not getting their unemployment checks.
To be clear, that 93% number was based on the false fraud allegations that the agency issued between 2013 and 2015. That's not the number for today.
Well, could be better, could be worse. You don't know.
You are right, though, that the MIDAS system that was set up in 2013 has put the onus on claimants to fix their problems with the agency every single day. This is not a new issue. This is something that we, at my clinic for years, I've been working with the Unemployment Insurance Agency since 2014. So right after they implemented this MIDAS system, the onus has been on claimants to be able to prove their eligibility at every single turn. That was the point of the way that MIDAS was programmed, which is why I think that this is a public system that's meant to adjudicate benefits, and we don't know how it works. This is something that the current UIA director has fought. He used to be the director of this clinic that I now direct, and he has been a claimant advocate for years, and he actually exposed the agency's false fraud 93% error rate to the public and wrote up to the Department of Labor to get it federally reviewed. And so he, of anybody, knows that the system is faulty. He just hasn't been there long enough to fix it. He's been in there just about a year.
And then the problem is worse now because we have all these claims. In the past, a citizen could call their state lawmaker, maybe their senator. They could escalate their case. The lawmaker could then go out to the UIA office and they could probably get some feedback. But right now, everything is so bogged down. Even our lawmakers can't get any. I've talked to several of them. They cannot get any feedback from the unemployment officials in the state of Michigan. So there is zero recourse for people like Lauren who have not received a penny, and she's been out of work since March, legitimately.
Well, and so the agency's issues with communication stem back to, at least the last decade. And our clinic was actually keeping record of how often we were actually able to get through to the agency. And before September of 2019, we almost never got through to the agency. We would either get that there's too many calls right now and the hang up. And if we did get through, the agency would refuse to talk to us. However, in September of 2019, the agency did do some upgrade to their phone system, and we were able to get through almost every single time until COVID hit. So this is an extraordinary amount of numbers. I know how behind that we are in our clinic. Our normal turnaround is within 48 hours to 72 hours, and we are 2 to 3 weeks behind.
Have you had any, we only got a minute or two, and we'll book you again maybe even tomorrow. Have you had any luck, or whenever you're available, how presumptuous of me, have you had any luck with any people that have called your clinic, been able to resolve any of their issues at all?
Yeah, we have. So I recommend that you do call our clinic if you're still having issues. Now, we are trying to prioritize people that haven't seen money since March, and working kind of backwards that way to who we actually take on. We have limited capacity to actually take on new cases, because recognize that we are a clinic of me and one other attorney, an admin, and some students. So we are very, very limited staff. But yeah, we have seen some success. We have, we are able to send information to the agency via fax, just like everyone else. And sometimes, because we know what's going on in the system, when we see people's screenshots, we have some idea of what's going on to be able to tell the agency, hey, we think this is the issue. Can you just remove this barrier that is caused by the computer system?
Rachel, we got to go. You're a hero. you're going to be my new best friend, because I just think what you're doing is fantastic. If there is no larger group of oppressed people other than maybe African Americans who are walking on the street because for obvious reasons. I can't think of any other group more oppressed in the state of Michigan than the unemployed, especially those who cannot get their checks, have done everything they should. They've paid into the system. Their employers have paid into the system. And we understand the system is overwhelmed, but it is a mess. I'm going to get you connected with Lauren, if you don't mind. I'd like
absolutely.
to reconnect with you, and anything I can do to help raise the awareness of this. We may need to call some other friends in the media and get their help with this, because this is a serious issue. And maybe we could even do a broadcast. You think the folks at the unemployment agency would let us come to our show there live?
I don't know.
Would you join me if they did?
Sure.
All right. All right. You're riding with a hardcore now, Lauren. Thank you very much. Hey, thank you, Lauren. Rachel, thank you very much. I'm going to work on this, and I really appreciate your time today, and fantastic work. The Workers' Rights Clinic at the University of Michigan. We're really glad to find out about you. If people want to get a hold of you because they have a similar issue, what would they do?
So I would recommend emailing us. We are faster at emailing than responding to phone calls. And please only do one of these two options. The more often that you do more, it creates havoc for our system. But one of the options is to email us at UIC-info, so law-UIC-info@umich.edu. The phone number is 734-936-2000. But again, we prefer that you email.
All right. Rachel, thank you very much. A lot of people out there having a hard time, and you're doing a great job to try to help them out. Greatly appreciated, and thank you for dealing with this crazy, over-emotional radio host today. So good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you, too.
All right, Tyler. Wow. See, you start researching this stuff. There are people out there that are trying to help, like Rachel, and hope is not lost, but 2 million people on unemployment in the state of Michigan, and I'm sure hundreds of thousands of them are not getting their checks.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure of that too. There's probably hundreds of thousands who aren't getting their checks right now and haven't gotten them for months. She mentions starting and working kind of backwards from the people who haven't had a check come in the mail from the unemployment agency since March and then move on. But I'm sure there's tons from March, tons from April, and it just continues to amount as time goes on. And I'm sure the vast majority of the people who haven't gotten their checks have probably been from the first couple months of all of this.
All right, so we'll get Lauren connected with Rachel, and hopefully she can be of some help. And then let's work on it. If we need to run up to Lansing for a day and have some more conversation about this, not trying to get anyone in trouble, but maybe we can help open up some channels of communication. And as I'm sure right here in Oakland County, there have to be thousands of people that are affected by this and have nowhere to turn.
Oh, yeah. For sure, yeah. There has to be a large amount of people in Oakland County. Everything's been closed, and it's one of the largest counties in the state of Michigan, one of the biggest business communities in the state of Michigan. Wouldn't surprise me.
All right, that's it for us. I'm going to let you sign off for us tonight or today, Tyler. But great job, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you as well, Dave. That will do it for us today on the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft from Green Media Center in West Bloomfield Township. Dave Scott with us today from Troy, Michigan. Thank you to all of our guests today, from Curt Lawson and Eric Glick, to Rachael Kohl, David Dulio, Sally Pong, and Lauren Keniston. For our production crew, Larry, Ryan, Jeff, and Erica. This has been the Oakland County Megacast.